All right. So we may or may not be live on Facebook. So this is the weekly question, but I'm assuming we are. And welcome to Up Close. I'm Artistic Director Randy Dixon, Unexpected Productions. And this week I will be spending the next hour or so talking to Kaisa Kokko-Palmer, a Finnish improviser, director, lady about town. And we'll talk about improv stuff. But before we do, a couple things. I'm going to kind of get our Facebook house in order. If you have a comment or a question, please feel free to post it on the Facebook feed, and I will try to hopefully see it. I'm always really bad about checking because I get caught up in the conversation, but I think we're there. Anyway, and then also, before we start, I will do the plug for our shows. We're doing 3 live shows at the Market Theater. So come on down. You can see actual improvisers live on stage, most of them live on stage. We do a Wednesday duo show. We have shows Friday and Saturday nights at 8:30. I'm sorry, we do 4 shows a week because we also have added a Sunday show. So live at the theater. And then in addition to that, we have currently UP TV, which is our online offering that's happening on our Twitch channel on Saturdays at 7. So if you don't want to or can't come down to the theater or somewhere else in the world where you can't come down to the theater, then feel free to watch that on our Twitch channel. We do have classes that are coming up. We have some international classes that are happening to celebrate June, which is not only UP's anniversary, but the typical time we normally would have our international festival, which hopefully we'll have that sometime soon. So in order to celebrate that, we're having some international teachers and me. I guess I'm the local person who's teaching. So come and check those out. All this information is at your fingertips at unexpectedproductions.org. And as you're listening to Kaisa and I talk, if you want to make a donation and support live theater, I guess our live theater in particular, you can do that through the webpage as well. And I'll remind you all the stuff at the end as well. But thank you so much for joining us. And let's turn our attention to Kaisa. Thank you so much for doing this. And,
thank you so much for asking.
Yeah. So all the way from Helsinki, here you are. And we're going to talk shop a little bit, talk improv. I don't know if you've seen any of these before, but I usually will begin by asking each of the guests sort of how you found improv and how it kind of came into your life. Was it a show? A lot of people did it in school. And sort of how did you get the ball rolling in terms of, getting to where you are today?
Well, I think that, improv found me, definitely did that. And I was, I was about 9 years old when I started doing scripted theater work. And for about 10 years, I did that in my hometown, very small town in the central Finland. And then just before I was about to move out from there, we were organizing this storytelling competition. That was like an annual thing for the whole of the country. And 2 guys came to that storytelling competition, and one of them won it, and the other one was the runner-up. And they were both super engaging, and they were like really there, like they were really having a discussion more so, like a dialogue with the audience. And I was like really impressed by it and very touched. And then I went to talk to them after the competition. I was like, this was really brilliant. And they were like, we're from the same improvisational theater. And I was like, something in my mind clicked, and I was like, what? There are theater companies in the world that only do improvised theater, because I didn't have that information before that. It's quite a young art form in Finland still. And for me, that was like a big thing and revelation. And then I ended up moving to that town that they were from. A couple of years later, then what happened was I auditioned for that theater company when they had auditions, and I got in. And that was like 16 years ago now. And then that's how it kind of like, I was doing scripted theater and improv at the same time for a long, long time. And then at some point it was like, I had to basically say goodbye to scripted theater mostly in order to be able to really like, it swallowed me. It did.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny because I had a kind of similar experience in terms of I was doing a lot of scripted theater and found it, I don't know, not, I just lost the mojo for scripted theater for a number of years. But fortunately for me, as I was doing that, then improv began to take over more and more, again, through no plan whatsoever.
Yes.
It just sort of happened that way. And then I kind of came back to doing some scripted theater, but I don't know what I would have done if improv hadn't kind of become that thing. So
Yeah.
in terms of getting into it when you're fairly young, and what kind of resources were available? Were you just kind of going to these teachers or directors and working with them, or were there other, obviously books like Johnstone's Impro and things like that you turned to, I guess, in your improv development?
Yes, in Finland it was, and I still to this day I think it still is mainly so that there are individual theater companies, different troops that they take people in every now and then, and they basically raise new improvisers depending on whatever their culture and their history with it is. And so basically the theater company that I got into was of students that used to study drama pedagogy at the university. And then they got super excited and interested in improv, and they started the company back in 98 maybe. And so then it was a couple of years, like 5-7 years later, that I joined. And so they had that very much so the experience of doing very Johnstonian style of improv, and they had gotten that from some folks that then had studied with Johnstone and got also obviously had the books and things like that. So to me, the beginning, okay, and even though then there was an addition to that as well, was like what they were doing already back then was long improvised plays. So
Right.
I had like when I got in, I learned two different main ways to I don't know if that's the way to improvise, but two different kind of products, so to speak. So that there was a lot of this short form game stuff, and we did that a lot for like corporate shows and those kind of things. And then we did improvised plays. But I think that kind of like the background for that and what we were basically standing on and learning from was very much influenced by Johnstone and the ideas that came from there, because that's how modern improvisation basically came to Finland originally.
Right.
Yeah.
So a couple things. One is, it sounds like when you got involved, and I find this kind of missing a little bit more, it's still kind of there, but you got involved in a way of improvising in similar fashion to my upbringing in improv, which was sort of the apprenticeship, where like you got in a company and you just kept your mouth shut and listened to a lot of really smart people talk to you about improv, and then you were like, oh, okay, I think I got it. Well, I'm still not sure I got it, but you get that experience. Versus like current generations, which there are a lot more resources, books and online stuff and all this stuff that's happening. So, and being, an old dinosaur for improv, my preference was that kind of oral tradition of like, I'm so thankful and glad of the people who I got to be in the room with and learn from, versus like trying to figure it out through reading, or because that's a totally different way of being. The second thing I want to ask you, because it's come up a couple times and I haven't asked anyone specifically this, but you're talking about doing short form, so very Johnstonian influenced short form, and then also doing these improvised plays. And so how did the improvised play work? Was there a structure to it, or was it just anything goes, we just know we're doing an hour-long one story kind of show, or was there definitely chapters to it or beats to it?
There were different ways of approaching this. So some of them there was a lot of developing of different kind of ways of telling stories in the theater company itself, and some of them were way more structured and had like, okay, this is basically the print of it, or so to speak. And but
Mhm.
a lot of that was really about the fact that we were focusing on creating, like when we were rehearsing, we would focus on like grounded and kind of like in-depth relationships, and then just letting the story unfold from there. And sometimes we would also work on different kind of genres. So then we would study the style of play, or a playwright, or a TV show, or whatever it could be, and then go from there. But yeah, that's what I think that it was mainly about. And then of course a lot of us were, majority of us in that theater company was also doing a lot of scripted stuff, so had background as actors. So I think that also obviously influenced it, and the European theater tradition for sure as well. So it was kind of a mix, and not only sourcing from the how to improvise, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So fast forwarding to now, a couple things. One is just a general question, because it strikes me that there's a relatively healthy improv scene in Helsinki, and in Finland in general, and things seem to be moving along. One, is that true? And and two, I guess, where are you right now in terms of where you're playing, where you're teaching, where you're finding your improv home?
Mm-hmm. Yes, just the first question, yes, I do think it's true. At least in terms of the idea of like when I first started, there was not that much, like it had been going for about 15 years already, more or less, in Finland, but there were still not that many companies, and it was quite relatively small amount of people who were doing it. And in the sense of like being a professional improviser, that is still a very, very small amount of people who do it here. So it's very much, for a lot of people, it's a hobby, or it is something that they study, that kind of stuff. But it has changed so much since I started like that within the last 20 years, that it's like I have there is an expression in Finnish that says when something really explodes, it's like popping mushrooms at rain time. So they just come everywhere. So that has really been the direction, which I think it's absolutely wonderful, because obviously I think that it's a great art form, and it's good for people to do it, and it has so many benefits even outside the stage art. But so there is a lot more people who are doing it, and a lot more people, theater companies now, both in Helsinki area especially, and in the area of the capital area of Finland, but also throughout the whole country. And how I fit into it nowadays, or what my place is, that we have been now in Helsinki for almost 3 years with my wife, Sara, who is originally from the United States, and she's an improviser as well. So we started an improv company and a training center, or a school here back in 2018. So this is basically our 3rd year of operating, and our aim was, because there wasn't a school for improv in Helsinki at all. Like there are these how do you call them, like you can go do like evening studies somewhere, or like I don't know what the exact word would be in English, but that you can take a few classes, but it's kind of there. And there wasn't anything that was really specifically concentrating on this art form, and we were like, that could be us somehow contributing to this. So this is where we're at the moment. So we do shows there. I get to play myself as well on stage, and I do work with a few different duos that I have. And but that is, I must admit that at the moment, especially after this Corona situation, it's like I'm kind of missing that kind of like space where I get to play myself and be challenged all the time and develop more and more. And so I'm also really much looking forward to the world kind of getting back to, I want to come back to the Seattle Festival again, for example, but yeah, but that's basically that's basically where I'm at the moment. And to finish this off, is like one of the things that I also think that has happened a lot in Finland, even though there are way more improvisers, they are a lot of the time have been in their own bubble really much, and kind of even competing with each other for the audience and this kind of thing. So there are two things. One of them is we started an association for all the professional improv companies in Finland about 4 years ago, which has been a wonderful thing because there are now like 12 different companies in it, and it's growing all the time, and we can basically do the work of like, hey, let's do stuff for this art form. So I think that has kind of brought people together, which has been really great. And then our personal aim with our school, Impro Helsinki, and the company is to create some sort of a bigger community in the Helsinki area. That is something that people really feel like they're welcome, and we can organize things that where people get to meet each other and get connected in that way.
Wow, that's great. So a network for improvisers to spread knowledge and experiences. You talked about, in 2018 founding this school, basically. What for you in the school, I guess, is the central sort of idea? I mean, what, are you teaching primarily like Johnstone stuff? Are you teaching other stuff or your own stuff, or kind of what goes into the mix of, if I take a class at your school, what kind of philosophical approach to improv am I going to get?
I think that the main thing is that it's definitely obviously a mix of the experience and history that we have already, that myself and Sarah come from very different kind of background, which is already, I think, a great thing that we can share that and think about how we do it. I think that the philosophy all in all is that everyone will learn their own way of improvising. And to me personally, one of the big things is that because I come from the background of I've studied education, and the idea of like pedagogical approach is big for me, and the idea that what happens in the group. And I do feel like, because for the first 2 years, and when you were mentioning that, this apprenticeship kind of thing, and then you're and that made me also be like, I was scared for the first 2 years because I wanted to be so good. Like I really, really wanted to be perfect. And it's really not, it's not even, I don't know if it's possible in improv to be perfect, let alone if it's something that you should thrive for. But like, so because of that experience, I think one of the big things for that school is basically, and this is not even content wise, even though probably that was what you wanted to hear about, but like the idea is that how to create that kind of safety in the platform, that kind of like psychologically safe space, that it is possible for people to try different things out and truly fail and develop and get to like different stages in their thing, and basically kind of having the possibility of going different paths to different ending points. And it's not like this is how we do and this is how everyone's path is going to be. So I guess that is the big philosophical approach. But then when it comes to content, yes, I think it's like basically we're trying to let people in on what all is out there, and kind of like that there is there is the Johnstonian way, and then a Viola Spolin is a big thing, and everything that happens and that comes from there. You are always a big thing, have always been a big thing for me and will continue to be. So that obviously has its thing in there as well. And I studied in Chicago, did the IO program there. So kind of like the idea of everyone finding of course, we're creating a certain kind of language so that it's possible for everyone to be in the same space and try different things. But at the end, I think it's more of like supporting the individual growth of someone becoming an artist that they are supposed to be.
That's great. No, I think that's music to my ears. I mean, because I don't know about you, but I found improv to become kind of a little bit dogmatic over the last few years, in terms of like the last couple decades, where it's like, here's the one method you need to know and just do that. And when I was growing up in improv, as you also expressed, it was kind of like, no, there were all these other influences. And it sounds like through your school, what you're doing is you're exposing, creating a safe place for the students to be exposed to whatever method speaks to them. So if it's, and this teacher over here or this philosophy over here talks to me, then here's a great safe space to create it. So it's cool versus being, no, don't do that, do this, which I think has become more and more, at least in my experience, traveling around a little bit more popular, I guess, for people to say, don't do that, do this. Versus like, to me, improv is all about inclusion. So it's like, whatever you want. And that's, again, through no plan. What happened with my training was I just got lucky and fell into a bunch of different circles, and then was like, okay, well, I like this from Johnston, I like this from Del Close, and I like this from, so sort of the salad bar of improv, I guess, is the, is the way to go.
Exactly.
So so you talked about missing performing and like being on stage. What do you think not being on stage is that you're missing? So, and it's not so much about like, oh, I love being in front of people and performing. It's more like for yourself.
Mhm.
What have you found that you're not getting, sitting at a desk, that you get being in front of a crowd? And again, not so much about the crowd reaction, but just for you as a person, as a soul, what do you find lacking?
The connection, like being like the idea of sharing something with someone and like it unfolding in that moment. I think that it's absolutely beautiful. And because you don't, honestly, if you don't push it, you will not know in advance what is going to happen. So to me, that is one of those really big things, like the idea of like these stories or these shapes or these whatever it is will come out. And I think that part of this long break, for me, I have been performing online on very few occasions, and it's a completely different thing. And we have done now one live show on a backyard of someone's house when they had they had their 50th birthday party, and we were kind of like a present for them, and then and with the, like in the snow and that kind of stuff. So that's the only one in the last year and so. And I feel like so those are the things that I'm missing, the feeling of like really truly being there. And I feel like it's something that when that happens and you get to feed on that, it kind of boosts your creativity in a way that has not happened during this year. So I guess that's the part that I'm missing. But then at the same time, also, I think that it has been a good thing that there has been a pause in my life in very many levels, but in one way also as a performer and an artist, because it has given me time to really kind of like sit back and relax and think like, what are the things that I find fascinating in life, and how is that something that can possibly lead into or leak into the performances as well.
Right. So how do you think improv can or maybe should be changed by what's happened in the last year? The fact that we've not been able to do shows, the world has changed. Because I've been having this discussion with several people over the last few days, just friends and colleagues, about like, because I'm of the school, like if we just go back to what we were doing, then we've missed the opportunity, we missed the offer in improv terms. So I'm curious for you in terms of, giant pause, a year-long thing where you're not able to perform, you're not able to do a bunch of stuff. How do you see kind of improv kind of working its way back, and what can improv do to the culture or for the culture that it maybe wasn't doing or wasn't as loud as before?
I think that one of the things that if I think first of the online platform now, even though maybe if we think about the live, but still what I do really appreciate in that is that it has made it so much more accessible for people, and especially for people who would not be able to take part in other ways. And that's why what I have really, really been grateful for, and that is something that definitely I can admit that would not become a thing that I would do if this wasn't forced, originally to get into like, oh, let's do stuff on Zoom or whatever it is. So that would have not been my first thing. So I think that is one of the things that I think it's really important. And the way it kind of weaves into the other part of it is like, this has somehow shown this past year how important connection to other people is, even for the Finnish people who are usually like, I wouldn't stand closer than 5 feet from you in any situation in any case, but like that it has been a very big, even a big concern, like how the youth of the country or the whole world, I'm sure, but like I'm not specific to Finland, how they're doing after like having to be so disconnected from everyone else for such a long time. So I think that one of those things that is a massive opportunity is to truly invite people to be part of something that is happening there and is unique to that amount of people, that group of people at the time. In terms of like content wise, I think that's more of like stylistic, like depending on whoever is doing it. But to me, I feel, as I said, like I think that for this last 3 years, because I haven't had an ensemble anymore, the theater company that I did work with for a long time, because I moved and now I'm in a different city. To me, it feels like I'm missing something that is like really good and something really deep, like something like, I think I have been struggling and having this artistic crisis all in all for the last couple of years, and feeling like, where do I want to go next, and what is that, and so to me it's like I want to like kind of get out of like, and hopefully that's not even what I'm doing a lot, but like just repeating something that is already there. So right. I would really hope that what we are learning all in all is to be brave enough to try out different things.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it also makes sense that in terms of I guess I learned something about Finnish Finland in the sense that like COVID had no effect because everyone's just keeping the same distance away that they always did. We got this. We can do this.
No, I think that it was really even there was a joke about the fact that because it was like something like 2 meters, you have to stay that, and people were like, do we really have to go that close to each other, because it's usually like 4, whatever, like that stuff.
Right. So, well, and I love what you were saying about the emphasis on connection, and that's something that, because one of the things, my discussions with lots of people, and it's come up in these interviews as well with several people, is just again that rising of community and the notion of, wow, we can go back and we can rebuild community, and what does that look like? But the online stuff I think is also interesting, and Healy, I hope I'm not destroying your name, commented that online courses made me start again doing improv, and hopefully there will be a hybrid model in the future too. And I think that's something that definitely has come out. I mean, we are keeping a hybrid model. We will have some online offerings at Unexpected Productions, but also getting back live. And I've had other people comment on it. I've had students who were like, because of their health conditions or other things, it's like, I would not be able to come down to do a live class. So it's so great to have it online. And I think that's something else that we can sort of step forward or move forward on in terms of improv is, what can we do online? And again, reaching an audience that not necessarily is going to come down and want to be in a room with a bunch of people, or can be in a room with a bunch of people. So, so I have a kind of unusual, well, it's not unusual question to you, because you, I don't know, and I don't give this compliment to a lot of people. You're like one of the most positive people ever on stage in terms of, I love playing with you because it's so much fun, and you're smiling, and it's just like, wow, this is like so much energy. And unlike myself.
Yeah. It's
Right.
a great pairing in that case. Yeah.
But and you and I've been on stage in scenes where, and hopefully you felt the same. Maybe it's not just me, where I'm just like, wow, this is horrible. But look who I'm on stage with. This is great. If I'm going to be in this horrible scene, I'm going to be with this person and find out what happens. So the question is sort of how do you recharge? How do you recharge your battery? Is it just, again, the way you are, which is fine? And I know part of it is that because you're also a very optimistic, bright, energetic person off stage as well. But I'm just kind of wondering what places do you get charges from, either working with people or other sources off stage?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And I have gotten that question before as well. And I have also gotten a lot of feedback, like my teachers or my mentors in the past, like when it comes to teaching or when it comes to acting, when it comes to different things, they're like, you can't keep up with that. Like you're going to burn out. Like you have to really like, so and I think that there's some truth to that as well. It's because I think that especially when I have been younger, I have been like, there is only two gears and the other one is like full and the other one is like, it doesn't, like I would go home for a weekend to my mom's house and sleep for 4 days in a row. Like, like I'm like completely dead. But I think that the older I get, the more I need my own time and the more I need quietness, for example, which at times might not be the interpretation of me, because I recognize it myself as well, that I'm a lot of the time like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And like, so I think that there is definitely another gear to that. And at home, I really, yes, sometimes I get excited as well, but a lot of the time spent at home is very mellow. And to me personally, nature is really important. So I do a lot of that stuff. I am there. I'm spending a lot of time there and just recharging, relaxing like that. So I guess those are the things. And then, of course, to me, I think that where it comes from, specifically the idea of like the positivity or the energy, I guess, on stage comes from the fact that I am incredibly lucky that I get to do something like this, because I think that it's unbelievable, really unbelievable. And when I go on stage, and especially when it's like, well, I hope to think that whoever I play with, I can bring some of that to that. But then sometimes when there is a really wonderful and rare opportunity to play with someone new, completely new, or someone that I really appreciate, for example, and then I get to be on stage, I'm like, oh, let's do this. So I guess that's where it comes from. Yeah.
Right. And then kind of following along with that, because we're talking about the soulful energy, but also what are your kind of touchstones, improv philosophies that you go to just personally, not necessarily even ones that you teach, but are there philosophies from particular teachers or ideas that you kind of just go back to, like when in doubt, I'm going to go back to this thing? And or this person or this philosophy. And again, not so much in terms of like educating an improviser, but just for you yourself as a personal performer.
I think that one of the things that I like to do every now and then is to go to my notebooks. And that is like a collection of things that, because I have had the possibility to train with a lot of different people and and gotten the opportunity to also travel a lot. And so one of those things is like, oh, back in 2015 in Milano, was happening, and I wonder, this is how I was as an improviser and an artist at that point. Like how was it? And then going back to that, or obviously, and of course, like that Seattle festival has had a huge impact on me, and I think I've been 4 or 5 times now, and that those are the things where it's like, of course, and I have said this before, like that to me, you have been one of those, definitely, like if I would have to say like who is an improviser or a figure from that world has affected me a lot, it's definitely you have had a really big effect on me, in that way of like, in a lot of ways, I think, but like getting like certain kind of wheels turning when it comes to like start to take more responsibility of your own artistry and kind of like really see like what do you want to produce, what is it that we need to put on stage, those kind of things. So I think that, and then obviously because there is a group of improvisers from all around the world, and everyone has their own way of looking at things, and even different ways, and they can change during the day even. And so I think that those kind of things to me is like going back, like physically going back to some of the notebooks and the way I have written things, or like if I have drawn stuff, like it will bring me very like visceral memories back, and then being able to kind of like go again from that. So I think that, and then of course if there is something specific that I'm like, oh, this is, I might go to a book. But I also think that I get a lot of, nowadays especially, I get a lot of inspiration from outside the actual improv world. But like all in all, in arts or like museums or like nature, as I already said, like those kind of things as well, which I think that is a good thing, because I want to look beyond also only the bubble of like, this is what improvised theater is about.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think my whole career, but also in particular in the last couple of years, I find myself going outside of improv resources to find inspiration all the time, and and just really deep stuff of like, oh wow, this is like this in this art form or about this kind of applies to what I do, and here's how we can do it. And in a way, that's sort of the general, maybe overgeneralization of the Seattle Festival philosophy, is like, let's take an idea that's not necessarily an improv idea and apply it to improv and see where we can go with that. And then get a bunch of smart people like yourself in a room and have you guys go at it,
Yeah.
And and you've been to a number of the festivals, and as I say, basically every year it's like, well, I don't know, maybe nothing will happen. Like, I don't know. So we get all those people in the room and we start talking about whatever the theme is or whatever the idea is. And I've certainly been surprised by what comes out of it. Rather than, wow, I never would have thought of that. But somehow all of us being in the room together, that's what came out of the room.
And that, I think that is actually quite unique in the, obviously my knowledge of the whole improv world is still very, very narrow, but I think that the idea of like going somewhere for a week to study the theme of maps, to me is like, and that is not something that you get on a general like it's another general festival in any case, definitely in any way, in any form. But like, I really, really love that idea. Then also the idea of like being able to somehow like, because there are some folks that are coming back, and this is fairly specific for a Seattle festival, but also I think that for some other places as well, is like when you are able to basically return to the crime scene again and again, and then you have some of the same people as well, like, and it's really interesting to follow their path as well. When you have at some year, there's someone who has I remember forever, like I remember one of the years, like Anders Force, he's sitting at the last row of the theater saying like, shit, I'm done with it, like that kind of stuff. And then the next year is like, yeah, this is, so it's so lovely to see like the phases that people go through, and kind of like yeah, as throw the ball around and see what happens from it. So I think that is brilliant, and I'm really excited and lucky that I have been able to be part of that.
Well, it's great that people like yourself take the chance too, because I mean, putting on the festival, it's often, I mean, there are people who come year after year and they get it, and you guys are magic to the festival because you help coax people into it and get into the experience. Because sometimes it's a hard sell, like when we did maps, to go, hey, come to Seattle and do an improv festival where we're going to work with a cartographer, a map maker. And it's like, people are like, what? I mean, why am I? Yeah, we're going to make maps. Isn't that cool? Okay, but then they arrive and you're there and you kind of go, come on in, it's gonna be great. And so I mean, that's part of the magic of the festival, and but I definitely see that in people, especially first year people, where it's like, wait, we're doing what with a Zen monk? Really? you know, and then finally, oh, I get it. Oh, I got it.
Mhm.
Great. And they leave excited. So that's cool. So, and the fact that people like yourself come back to me is also really rewarding, because I go, wow, here's a really good, smart improviser. And they're coming back. They're not
Yeah.
like, well, screw this. Like, this, I'm going to go do something else.
No, I'll come back as long as the festival is being produced. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So as we're reopening, I guess the world is reopening. I mean, I kind of see the long picture. So I'm going like a year from now, we'll kind of maybe be getting back into where we're at. What are you thinking in terms of the live performance in Helsinki and Finland in general? Like, how are you guys coming back? Like, we're doing live shows, and it's great, and the support and enthusiasm of the audience has been fantastic. Everyone's just great, I think, to just be out.
Yeah.
Like, we could be doing nothing. You could be standing on stage, and they would be like, yeah, this is awesome. You know? But we are doing shows, and I think good shows. But it's just kind of like trying to get the audience back and revisit. But then I'm also facing the question, which I'm sure you're facing with your group, about, okay, now what? What's the work going to look like a year from now?
Right.
If we're back up and running. So do you have thoughts about that?
Yeah, and the thing is, because our company and our school is so young, that basically we only had 1 year of proper, like one full year, and then on the second year that hits, and so because of that, it has been really I'm not going to lie, really a struggle that we're still here. And in terms of obviously like the finances and all of that comes with it. So at the moment, and for the last half a year, it has only been like, no, more than that, obviously, it has only been like, let's see if we can make like, and can we? No, we can't. And can we? No, we. And at the moment, we're in a situation where you can have 6 people in an audience. If now, I think they have opened it to that. And how would I say? I'm hoping that, as you were saying, it will change slowly. Things will open up again. And we have now, this week, we were just scouting for a new performance space, because we have our own rehearsal space, like, and the office, that kind of stuff. But it's too small for holding like live shows. And so we went to see a space, and we're kind of like very being hopeful about maybe this will happen. So we have tentatively like reserved dates for the following fall, and then the upcoming spring, so the next 2 terms basically. And I'm really much looking forward to being able to hold a complete, like, get really the thing going in a way that we were imagining some 3 years ago. Like, this is how it could look like. The idea of like having classes, weekly classes, which we had, and which I'm really grateful for the fact that we have so many students that have been like rooting for us so much, and people who are like, we want to help, we want to support, that kind of stuff. So I'm really hoping to be able to just go for a in a way, like, regular schedule. And the same thing with the idea of like slowly offering more and more performances, and the kind of performances as well, like, because part of our school idea is that the students that are graduating from different classes, they also get to go in front of an audience and slowly start to learn that part of the art form as well. And so, but in addition to that, like, producing like versatile improvised theater, basically like put on different kind of shows, and have more people to visit again, like we are hoping for whenever you are coming to Europe the next time, like those kind of things. Like we have a lot of people have been here in the past, so being able to portray like this international shows as well, and obviously teachers and instructors and stuff like that. So that's what I think and hope, that where we're at maybe in a year from now, that we will be able to hold like a steady schedule. I think that's the main thing for now.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it'll be interesting. And I was talking to other people. I actually, in this forum, I think again as well, just about like, I mean, improv is already going through, at least in North America, a huge amount of transition pre-COVID for a variety of reasons, and kind of having to self-reflect a lot about, you know, diversity, inclusion being two of the themes and things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious, and I don't have an answer or even a theory about, like, in North America, where's everything going to end up? So it's kind of interesting. Like it's to me, it feels like, again, everything, you know, the cliche is true. Everything's like up in the air, and it's like, where's it going to land? I don't know. Is it going to land? I don't know, right? And you know, and even like things that have been established, like the improv festival circuit, you know, where we have international festivals, I kind of go, well, how's that going to change?
Yeah.
Because of all this, and also the notion of being online and how much easier it is to, you know, we have had international teachers. You and I are talking now, you know, as much as I would love to fly you to Seattle and see you in person, it's amazing that we can do this and you're in Helsinki and I'm in Seattle. So how does that change everything? Again, I don't know. You know?
Yeah, but it's going to be really interesting to see.
Right. And it's also a great opportunity. And that's why I think, you know, in terms of asking that question, it's like, it's a great opportunity for the art form in many ways, even as a business, to kind of reinvent itself.
Yep.
And are we going to do that? You know, or are people just going to go back to what we were doing before? And to me, then we miss the offer. Yeah. Personally.
Yeah, and I have now, so because I am in that boat, definitely, that I would rather be in the same room with you, like physically being able to like even like feel other people, like the presence, all of that. But I must admit that during this last year, because I've done a lot of training online, both like training, like teaching improv and coaching groups in other side of the country, for example, because it's been possible, not without going anywhere, but then also doing a lot of like work on different like corporate work online. And to me, the idea of like, oh, and the biggest thing has been that myself and a colleague, we are now entering our third year of teacher training in Finland, where we get government funding for teaching improv to teachers in Finland. And I'm like, that is a big thing. And to me, obviously coming from the education background that I have, and I find it really, really important that the core ideas of improv would be able to be passed on just as skills, life skills, basically, and communication. So that is one of the big things that we've done with my colleague. And this spring was the first time that we had to do the whole training online. And originally, because the training is about intuition, empathy, and communication skills through improv. And I was like, no, it's not possible. It can't be done. And then when we changed the corner of like, what if? And then when we started to go like, hey, how could we try this and this? And so it became a completely different like species, different animal altogether. And with that experience now, I feel like I don't want to personally just miss all of this like in the future, even though it's not ideal for everything. But if you treat it as it is and remember what you can do here, I think that it's a wonderful tool in addition to something. So our long-term plan with Sarah is that at some point we will be able to go back and forth from Finland to US and stay extended periods of time in the US and do things there, that will still enable me to do some of the work to Finland just through the online platform. So that's, my personal perspective at the moment. It's like, I don't want just leave it behind. And it was just a tool for this time when we were like paddling, like, and now it's done. But instead, really take that into consideration.
Right. What do you think? And this is maybe I guess I'm curious to hear your answer sort of for pre-COVID, because I know COVID's had an impact on obviously online improv and other kinds of improv. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts a little bit on sort of what did you find in general most frustrating about improv? Like going to festivals and seeing shows and doing shows, and it's like, I mean, I think we all have those different things where it's like, really, does this have to happen this way? And so I'm curious to find out, in your experience in traveling as well as also maybe Finnish improv, just kind of like, this is really frustrating. I wish this would change.
Well, two things come to mind. And first I have to say, I genuinely believe that improv is for everyone, and that everyone should have the right to try it and do it and learn it, those kind of things. So that's not away from that. But now I'm talking about performative like improv on stage.
Right.
Two things. First thing is this: there is so much bad improv. There is so much there's so much improv that is like, I'm watching it and I'm like, why is this happening? There is no reason for anyone to watch this or do this. So I'm being super like, maybe
sure.
Too much, but like, that's the first thing, is like, I really would want there to be more thought in like behind of what we are creating, like what kind of stories we want to tell and why is this happening. So basically that would be one of those things, is like, aim higher artistically and just don't try to execute a certain form. Like, I'm so fed up, like I don't want to watch one more structured Herald ever in my life when it's just like, we have to end at 22 minutes, and I'm like, no. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is, I think that which is more in relation to like traveling a lot, is like, I think that somewhere in the world there is like this, that people are trying to execute the kind of improv that they have seen somewhere else, and that just take that and bring it to their own completely different culture, and kind of like just glue it on the thing and see like, this is what improv comedy is, or this is what improv theater is, whatever it is. And so to me, I think that there is a big missed opportunity in the idea of like, well, as we talked earlier about the fact that what are you being influenced and what are the things that are pulling you. So I think that because even inside different cultures, there are like different sub things of like, oh, this is something that is really interesting in this little town, and this is what they, this is, if you look at the theater that is being done, or scripted stuff, or like whatever else the art and the culture is, I think that there's a big missed opportunity in just trying to, I said that already. This answer was like super long, but I said it in the first sentence. That was what I thought.
Right. Wow. And you took a stand on the Structured Herald, so that's but it was positive. That's what I'm talking about. Like, if I said that, it would come across as being Mr. Pessimistic, negative guy. But you say it with a smile, and it makes total sense. So that's how it happens. I mean, one thing that, in the second part of what you were saying, which is, I think, a big thing, is, and it took me a long time to figure this out as a teacher and director, especially going around and working in other countries, is, and kind of going to what we were talking about earlier about improv being, hey, don't do what you're doing, do it this way. And so sort of going, hey, don't do it the way you're doing it in Helsinki, do it the way we do it in Seattle. Yeah. And then you're great. And there are a lot of groups that I definitely see have kind of put, as you're saying, they kind of glue it on top of whatever it is. And to me, as a teacher and director, I find I'm doing more and more about like, don't lose the Finnish fingerprint on what you're doing culturally, because it's cultural and every culture is different, and that's what makes it unique. You don't want this cookie cutter thing of what works in Seattle will work in Helsinki. It's like, well, it might, but does it have to? And what's the Helsinki method or the Finnish method, and also like, to compare to the Seattle style or Chicago style or New York style, and so not losing that. So I find myself more and more as a teacher and director really trying to encourage people, here's what I can teach you because here's what I know, but don't lose what you already have. But I mean, it took me a while to find that for myself. And I think you're right about the structures in terms of people seeing something going, wow, that's really great, and it works there. and is really entertained, and then come back here and do it, and it's like doesn't fit. Find your own form, or adapt it, or do whatever it is. And I think that's a product of what we were talking about at the very beginning, in terms of like how we were educated through more of an apprenticeship versus here's the book.
Yeah.
And the book explains all forms. I just have to follow the book. Versus being in the room and hearing somebody talk, or watching it and seeing it work, and definitely seeing it not work, and going through that. So if there were, when you're teaching, and let's say not a beginning improviser, but let's say an advanced class, what are the key things that you try to focus on? You've talked about connection, and I think that's great, and that's something to focus on for students, like connection. But what are other, and they can be skills, or they can just be ideas that you kind of go, I want these advanced students to walk away with these 4 things or 3 things. Where would you start?
I think that's the idea of getting ownership of who you are as an artist, and like getting to know who you are and what you are doing, or what are the things that you want to share, or what are the things that you want to tell. I think that then, to me, one of the really big things is like variety or versatility. And to me, I think that is one of the big things, is like getting, like recognizing those things that, oh, these are the things that I am doing, and these are the things, for example, that I'm doing really well, and then how can that be shifted in a way that I find myself, or my student in this case, will be able to adapt into different situations, and or offer different kind of things when it comes to rhythm, for example, or the dramaturgy, or like understanding like the, how would you say, like the feel of the piece, basically, like trying to, okay, so that this is something that can be brought in. So I guess more of like a technical thing. But then I think at the end it's like because like how would I say this, like having the belief in yourself, and wanting to do different things without maybe it's still there, that fear of failure thing, which I think that can be very, very thing, and that very big, and that is one really big thing in Finland particularly, because, and here's my quick theory on it, is like, because you here, I find it myself as well, like you have to do really well in order to like get approval. You don't get, like, people don't say like, hey, that's amazing, but instead they're like, like, and that's amazing. So those kind of things. So I think that one of those things that improvisers in Finland to some extent are struggling with is to being willing to not do that well in order to find something else. So I think that that's also one of those things still there in the advanced students, that you're giving them, everyone together are giving the possibility to that kind of platform where you truly can try something completely different and not stay in the safety of something, one thing or a few things that you have learned. Right. I guess maybe those things are the ones that now come to mind in this instance.
Right. And do you think it's an easy, like in a group, so the advanced student hears that and goes, oh, fantastic, I'm gonna go off my group. Because one thing that strikes me is it's not impossible, and it's actually not that hard, but it seems pretty uncommon to see that kind of environment encouraged, because we do get caught up as performance groups in the notion of, we've got to do a good show, got to be funny, got to do all this stuff. And so, how do you see that playing out? Somebody comes in all excited to be doing these things, and what you're talking about is great. And if you had a whole group of people doing that, fantastic. But at least in my experience, I think I talk to students about similar stuff and then send them out, and then they go back to their group and they just hit a wall. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and I do also think that that's one of those things that happens every time when, not every time, but a lot of the times when then it's time to like, there is a wonderful, wonderful sayings and stories and relationships happening in class. And then when it's time to go on stage, that right, like the thing of like, I need to be entertaining comes even when when it's being addressed so many times that that's not the main thing, or that's not the best way of approaching it in any case. But I do think that one of those things that we try to do is well, first of all, it's already in the language of like, we're talking about improvisational theater all in all, and it's not about comedy per se. And it doesn't say that it's not funny. It definitely is. And I'm a huge fan of comedy as well when it's well done and not forced. But I do think that that's one of those big things is like we go through the whole, like when the students that we have, they go through, let's say they go through the like 1 year of training first, and then they go through, we have a now starting next fall, the first time, like a 1 year conservatory program where the students are performing like regularly and getting different kind of people, different kind of teachers coming in, doing different kind of things with them, tweaking things. So one of those big things is like constantly reminding and showing that it's not about that one thing of like ding 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 ding, this is what I'm gonna, and also doing that for the audiences. So basically when we have audience, when we get audience in, we always address them with the idea of like, because we don't know what is going to happen. It might be something that you find that is really funny, but it also might be something that makes you cry, or it can be, you know, like, so kind of like wording out different like aspects of it, and being like, in that way, hopefully bringing a little bit of that down, of like that huge, like, how do you call it, like that stress of it looking like something, but instead like something specific, but instead giving the freedom of this is what starts to happen. But I honestly, maybe some of that is also just something that comes with when you have enough time, when there is a, you know, like because I feel like for myself, that kind of limit, that thing of like absolute freedom and not feeling that idea of like, I need to be super funny, for example.
Right.
It only kicked in like maybe 6 or 7 years ago, when I felt this huge like of freedom coming, like it can be anything at all. And that to me is something absolutely wonderful. And I don't know if that is something that you can just teach by saying to someone else, like, just become free, you know.
Don't say anything. Just no, stay right there. I do love, and again, something easier said than done, but you said it and it makes total sense. I love that distinction again between saying improvisational theater versus improvisational comedy. You know, I often will talk about in class, you know, so we talk about improvisational comedy. I said, if the word improvisation meant comedy, you wouldn't need to have the comedy word there. So I would say in English, it's like saying improv comedy. Versus like if it was meant to be in the word, it would make total sense. So improvisation means something else, and then you add comedy or theater or whatever it is. But the expansion of the, you know, and what's possible in the word theater, I'm just kind of echoing stuff you already said about what things can be. They can be moving, they can make you cry, they can make you laugh, they can make you do all that stuff, which you can access more by just thinking about it in terms of theater versus comedy. And a second thing that struck me is, and I know you've had these conversations as well, is it's funny when you talk to somebody about, you know, be like us having this discussion, and then we go out on stage and, oh, my pants are down, and oh, I'm and I've seen that so many times where I'm like, is this the person I was talking to last night? You know, about storytelling and, you know, drama and all the rest of it. And now they're like, really? I'm like, wow. But I guess it comes with the territory, so who knows? What do you think about, and we're going to wrap up because we're a little bit over, but I want to keep going for a couple more minutes. But I'm also curious about and this is something that has kind of been lost in the conversation around COVID, but was coming up at Improv beforehand, and you and I talked a little bit about this beforehand, in terms of like diversity and inclusion, and what sort of is happening in Finland around that, around gender roles, around inclusion, around trying to reach out. Because it's a big issue here in North America. We've even had theaters that have basically gone out of business because they can't quite overcome that. So what is it talked about in Finland? I'm sure it is, but at what level? And also for yourself, having your own group, how have you encountered that?
Yeah, it is talked about, I don't think not as much and not in a similar level that it is in North America, for example. But I think that hopefully it is going more towards that direction as well, because it's not something that doesn't exist here, that's for sure. And I think that the thing that we are trying to do is try to make our school and our business available for everyone, and try to be able to invite all different kind of people in it. And I think that obviously that is already something like that's just by default that we have. At the moment, we have 3 teachers in our school, and we're all women, and 2 of the founders and owners of the school are a married couple. And so that's already covering some of the, like, when it comes to like diversity. And so I think that that's as itself already a statement, even though it's not something that was planned. And which is, I think it's really interesting that in Finland, which I guess is very different from a lot of other countries, like people who are studying theater or doing theater and improv as well, improvised theater, there is way more women or females doing that for art form than men, and with the specific terms as well, like with my English not as good, but like as you, I'm sure that you're. So basically that is one of the things, and then for us the idea of equality when it comes to genders, for example, is something that has been a big thing for a really long time. Still not there, but fighting for it a lot. And so I think that's unfortunately, our improv communities and our improv stages in Finland are still way too white, for example. And that is something that we can change, and what we must as well change. And hopefully also when it comes to other like issues around this and the idea of diversity, that is something that we can show by our actions and by the kind of the stories that we tell and the people that we put on stages. And I think that it's super important, that and something that, as you were saying earlier on as well, is like, I don't know how that path is going to look like, and where does it end? What does it look like then? But I do know that as a person on the planet already, as an individual, but then obviously also as a school owner and an artist, that is my responsibility from my part to make the kind of action, like take those kind of steps that it is possible to steer into the direction of more diversity, more inclusion, and so forth.
And do you find that the environment in Finland specifically is open to that, encouraging that, or is there still going to be kind of a little battle about getting those voices heard?
I think it's divided. It definitely is divided, and there are people, like when it comes to the whole country, and we have municipality elections coming up in 2 weeks, for example, and we have one of our parties is basically like I think that if you would change if you translate the name, it's like a True Finns, or this kind of, like this. No, I'm not saying, and this I'm not definitely saying on Facebook Live that it's a nationalist party or anything. I'm not. So that's, but just saying that, like, there is, like, there obviously, as I'm sure that in a lot of countries the situation is not that there's a group of people who are saying like, we don't want anyone else in our country than just us who are the best, and don't take our jobs and women, and like that kind of, which I feel very differently about that specific part. But in any case, I think that there's still a lot of work to do, and it's not like, oh, now the time is right. the time is never right because nobody wants to give up their rights. Like nobody wants to give up their privileges, and that's the big thing that it must be somehow shaken in order to make change.
Yeah, it seems like, you know, a tall order. I mean, all this discussion that's happening in improv about diversity, inclusiveness, and, you know, and also not only gender issues, but like ageism and all this stuff. And what I find kind of interesting is the dialogue seems to be like, and we need to do it all today. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot, you know. And I think, at least in my circles, like as you're saying, it's a bit divided. So the first thing is like, let's talk about it and let's find out why we're not doing it, or what keeps any of this stuff from happening. And so I'm always curious in other countries, like how that sits. Just, you know, as an art form, but also how people are doing it, because hopefully we can get some ideas from you and bring them back here and use them. So, but yeah, no, I like what you're saying. It seems like it's very optimistic in terms of the dialogue that's happening. So
yeah, at least I myself, I'm like, but maybe that's the problem, that I am a lot of the time very optimistic. Well, but then at the same time, you know what, if it would only be like, no, it's nothing can change, it won't. So there needs to be the push for it as well. Yeah,
right. Cool. Well, on that note, I want to thank Kaisa for being here. It's so great to talk to you. And again, I mean, even online, you're like the first person online I've gotten lots of energy from just this talk, that I'm going to go dance or something. I don't know what will happen, but good job on that. And in Facebook, I see, Sid Sharma said, always nice to listen to Kaisa.
Oh,
and then he added, and Randy too.
Fair enough.
So, I get the little, okay. Thank you, Sid. Yeah, so hopefully for those people watching from here in Seattle, within the next year or so, we will be able to see and welcome you back to come back to a festival, maybe teach a class, maybe do stuff. Yeah, we'll be in touch. But I do want to thank you. And again, in closing, just announce we have 4 live shows that are happening at the theater. So you can come down and actually be in a room with a bunch of people. Well, not a bunch of people, but a number of people, a safe number of people. And those shows are Wednesday duos, and Friday and Saturday theater sports right now. And Sunday we do Improv Unplugged, which is essentially an open improv show. We'll be adding some more shows as things open up here. We have our online show on Twitch at 7 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time here on our Twitch channel. And it's called UPTV. So come and check that out. And it's a very specific to being online show. It's not just a live show that's broadcasting. It's meant to be online. And we have our upcoming classes in June. We have, I think we have 4. I hope I'm not forgetting somebody. We have Trixie Brunschka from Graz is teaching. Felipe Ortiz from Colombia is doing a movement class again, which was very popular the last time we offered it. There's going to be a lecture on creativity from Yuri Kinagawa from Japan and New Zealand, which is where she lives. And then I will be teaching a spontaneous myth workshop for 4 weeks, I think. So you can find out about all that stuff online, unexpectedproductions.org. And again, if you like what we were talking about here, or want to support UP in general, you can make a donation, unexpectedproductions.org. Next week, we'll be back with another interview. I don't know who that is. I do know in 2 weeks, we will have Christoph Jungmann from Die Gorillas in Berlin. And he co-produces with Die Gorillas a festival in Berlin. We'll talk about festivals and all that stuff. So that'll be in 2 weeks. And next week, tune in just to find out who's here. And and again, thank you, Kaisa. We'll,
Thank you so much, Randy. This was absolutely wonderful.
oh, great. No, it's good to talk to you. It's been too long. And
Likewise, yeah.
look forward to even more to seeing you actually in person. It'd be great. So,
Yes.
but anyway, thanks for sticking around, and we'll see you guys online later.